All right. So you wanted to take a look at one of the flows that we've put together. This is a flow that we built for a webinar, or rather, a live webinar, not necessarily a recording like so many others, or a single day webinar. The idea behind this is we were building this out when we were beginning to launch a product that we were building together with some teammates over in England. And the concept behind this was that basically we'd want to do a live workshop, not webinars, at least not call them webinars because it's sort of a jaded term by now, but be able to have a different live workshop every day. So we put together 7 workshops and we had them running every day. And so what we did was instead of running a standard webinar jam or Zoom kind of opt-in where they just go to this plain opt-in page and they sign up for the webinar and then they choose their date. We wanted to get them into the chatbot to develop that list that we wanted to have, and at the same time begin to demonstrate the power of a chatbot and really just walk the walk. Because if we came around telling people that chatbots were the future and then we put them into a traditional email marketing funnel and sequence, well, that's where we need to put our money where our mouth is. So we actually built this and put it together. And shortly, if you want to do it before this video or after this video, I'm also sending you the opt-in link so you can demo this funnel, this flow. But the concept is they come in from the opt-in and they land in this condition right here. Basically, what I want to do is I want to make sure that the chatbot doesn't double book somebody, right? So if they've already come in and they're already booked for a webinar date, send them to another flow over here that says, hey, you already have your ticket. Are you needing some help? Are you ready for it? Basically, here what I also wanted to do is give the notion that if they wanted to change the date, they could. Now, the reason why this is done this way is that Zoom gave us 100 seats maximum. So what we did was we set up a seat calculator, which I'll walk through right now, that would then go taking away seats or returning seats based on who was getting tickets. So they come in straight into this. Let me just publish. They come into this chatbot. They're welcomed, and we tell them briefly, you're here for the registration of the webinar. Does that sound good? Are you actually in here for that? It's a double opt-in. Once they've said yes, we set the date and time of action as a registration, because here's the thing. This is accompanied with a 3-day sequence, which we are actually about to compress into a 24-hour sequence. A 3-day indoctrination sequence where we go explaining to them over the 3 days little tips and tricks about the content that they're going to be learning, standard webinar practice, So we wanted to make sure that if they were signing up for the webinar today, webinar, they're signing up, registering for it right now, that they don't get put into a webinar tomorrow or the day after tomorrow, even if it has space. So what then happens there is we say, okay, we're putting up the seating chart. By the way, what kind of business do you run or represent in one word? Then over here is going to check to see if the date over here, remember right here, register the date and time of action. It wants to check, first of all, if the upcoming webinar, or rather the first webinar on the list, webinar 1, is actually, in fact, in the future, not behind today, right? To make sure that they don't sign up for something that's already happened. If it is in the past, it'll just continue on going down through these gates all the way to the bottom until it runs out of webinars, after which it'll default into a webinar replay. So let's say that this is actually in the future. Next one is I want to see if the webinar itself is going to, or rather the next one available is at least 3 days, is after 3 days from the date that they are registering, which is the present. If the answer is no, it tells them that the ticket's sold out and moves them on to the next one, into the next showing module, let's say. If it's yes and they can register for it, we have a little thing that that determines how many tickets are left. Remember that there's a counter that goes counting down how many tickets are left. This wasn't exactly necessary, but we put it in because it allowed us to handle urgency and scarcity copy, different urgency and scarcity copy in each module, or rather each message. Then once they signed up, it would decrease the amount of tickets by 1 to make sure that that seat was taken. We make sure that we didn't overbook our webinar because Zoom only allowed us 100 seats. Then what happens here is it sets a date for what you're about to see. Now, each one of these has a module. You'll notice that pretty much this area right in here is a showing module. You can actually have as many, and we're going to be expanding this to take up to 31 modules so that anybody who is hardcore into webinars can have up to 31 webinars going. We're actually doing that for our own benefit, not necessarily because we're expecting other clients to have it, but because that's the kind of environment we want to create for our people. So once they've already gone through it, if they say no, they want another date, it just goes and says, let me check when the next webinar is available, and then it just moves on to the next module. Once they're signed up, brings them into this ticket sharing where we encourage them to share their ticket, or no, not share their ticket per se, but share the event to encourage some virality among business owners. When they share it, it sends them this card, which as long as when you're testing this out, you click on the yes, I do have somebody, you can actually click this share button right there and then plug in the names of your fellow business owners or people you've met in a Facebook group, whatever. Then it's going to wait for 1 minute to give you a chance to do that. Then it's going to deliver a ticket. Now, this is what I'm super excited about because this is actually a ticket. Well, I'm not going to ruin the surprise. I'll let you check it out. I'll just give you a hint. It's a dynamic ticket that utilizes some of the information, whatever information we wanted to use from your subscriber. Then it checks to see which webinar date, and then it sends a confirmation of the date. And then it moves on into the next sequence. Now, before I wrap this up, this particular flow up, down here we have the replay. Now, this brings me to one of the issues that you brought up about tickets. And there was this subsidiary of Ticketmaster that insisted on asking you the same silly question over and over and over again. Basically, if there are no more live events available, or we haven't reset the dates, or whatever the issue is, it's going to ask, okay, well, what day would you like to watch your replay? It asks for free keyboard input. This actually is something that will allow us to allow the bot further on in the sequence. It'll allow it to send the link at the appropriate time because it's not actually hosted on an evergreen page. It's a straight up link that we'll just be sending. So you select the date. Now here's where I want to show you. This is something that we built in. It's a randomizer to make sure that people don't get the same question over and over again. It's going to automatically continue as to whether they picked a date. The selection attempt is going to provide them with, it's going to try 3 different attempts. It's going to attempt 3 times to to get the subscriber to choose a date. It's going to go through a randomizer. Once it's gone, if it's exactly 2, in other words, if it's counted up to 2, it says yes, it's going to send a final reminder, which is saying, hey, what's up, man? I mean, are you actually interested in this? And then yes, no, goodbye, etc., right? I mean, your standard exit for the subscriber. If the answer is no, it has not reached 2, it's currently on 0 or it's on 1, it's going to increase the selection attempt by 1. So you have reminder 1, reminder 2, and then there's a reminder 3 over here. Each single one is going to be different. You know, this one says just click on the button and it will show you a calendar view so you can choose the best day. This one over here is going to say, you still there? I know you must be busy, but you haven't chosen a day. And this one says, I'm just waiting for you, blah, blah, blah. Once it's gone through there, it's going to go up through here, and then here's another little thing. So it's not irritating. What we're going to add here is a different amount of time that it's going to wait, depending on the message that's already been sent. So it's also going to go back, same way as this one over here. It's going to check to see how many attempts have been made, and then it'll distribute into one of these. Once they've said yes, it then goes into here. It's going to check if it's buffered. Both buffering before and after. And this is actually currently under construction, which is why some of the logic gates aren't 100% logical just yet, but we're still building it. But I just wanted to show you what this concept was over here because I mentioned it briefly on our phone call. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and let you get into the flow, or if you've already gone through it and demoed it, that's fine. And we'll be in touch.